Me, very happy to be joined by my Canelo panel, who all seem very marvellous people. And I've met them just now, and they're going to start us off with an introduction to themselves and their book, starting with Alex, because you're at the top.
Hi everybody, it's lovely to be here this evening. So I'm a Chaudhuri, but people call me Alex, so that's nice. I am the author of, well, I've had 4 published books so far. I'm the author of the Kramer and Carver thrillers. The first book is The Scribe, which is a serial killer investigation. And the second book in the series that I've written so far is The Abduction, which is about it's set in a law firm, and it's where 4 lawyers are abducted from the firm. And it features Mandy Kramer, who's a feisty lawyer in the city, and she teams up with the surly but enigmatic DCI Jake Carver to help solve the crimes that happen in, well, they're related to the law firms where she works, basically. So yeah, they've had really good reception. I think people quite enjoy, it's quite a unique pairing, the lawyer and the detective. And I'm currently working on the 3rd in the series for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm also the author of She's Mine, which is my first psychological thriller, which came out with Hera Books last August. Do you want me to say what the story is, or just roughly, so basically it centers on a mother called Christine Donovan, and around 20 years ago, she was out shopping with her toddler Heidi, and she turned around to take a phone call that she knows she should have ignored, and when she turned around, her toddler was gone. And over the years, she's racked with guilt for neglecting her child, but also because of a shameful secret that she feels contributes to Heidi's disappearance. And then one day she gets a note posted through the door claiming that Heidi is still alive. And then things start to take a rather sinister turn for her and the rest of her family. And I'm really delighted with the feedback it's received. It's had a really great reception, so that was really nice for my debut. And then my latest book is The Loyal Friend. I'm loving this cover. Hera did a fantastic job with that. And this is out next week, just after Jane's, I think. It's out on the 23rd of June. And it centres on the disappearance of a young, beautiful, vivacious fitness instructor, Jade Pascal. And she goes missing in mysterious circumstances. And it follows the police investigation into her disappearance. And it's told mainly through the eyes of 3 very different women, each of whom have dark secrets and pasts they'll do anything to keep buried, and all of whom may have a reason to wish Jade ill. So that's The Loyal Friend.
Marvellous. Julie, do you want to go next?
Yeah, okay. So, I'm Julianne Corrigan, but I write as J.A. Corrigan. My debut novel was published in 2016. So my debut novel was titled Falling Suns. It's quite a dark tale. All of my tales are quite dark, I think. This is a dark tale. It has a detective, Rachel Doone. It was a while ago when I wrote this. I've almost forgot the story. Rachel Doone, whose young son goes missing. How old? My 6-year-old son goes missing. It's found dead. So this is very much at the beginning of the novel. And it's really a novel of revenge. A mother taking, what's the tagline? How far would you go to avenge the murder of your young child? So she's actually a detective, Rachel Doone, and she leaves the force, but she uses her detective skills to find out what's happened. So that's Falling Suns, my baby. my second book. This Falling Suns was published by Headline Accent in 2016. My second book was published last year, 2021. So this is the lockdown. This is the lockdown baby. This is the nurse. Really fantastic cover. This was published by Canelo, my first book with Canelo. I think the cover's great. This is a story. It's a dual timeline story of Rose Traherne, who we meet right at the beginning of the book, and she's in prison for murdering her patient. And it charts her. She meets a journalist, Theo, who becomes quite entranced with her, and he comes to interview her in prison. And gradually, over the course of the book, in two timelines, she goes back in time to tells him what happens, and then the two timelines come together at the end for the ending of the story. So that's Rose and Theo in this book. And my new release, which was released by Canelo, so my second book with Canelo, was released in April this year, which is The Bad Sister. This book, again, is dual timeline. There's two timelines. It charts the tale of four sisters. Three of them have a point of view in the book. So my three sisters are Teresa, Jessica, and Natalie. Two timelines, again, starts in the past when something happens, comes to the now, the present, and again we find what happens, who was murdered, and the three sisters' story behind that. So yeah.
And Jane, do you want to finish us off?
Yeah, certainly. So I've been writing fiction for 10 years, so I've written 12 novels. So I probably won't introduce every one of my books, otherwise we might be here all night. I'm probably best known for my police procedurals. My latest police procedural featured DCI Helen Lavery. It was the fourth in her series, Evil Intent, which came out this year in February, which was a serial killer thriller, basically. And the detective, Helen, also finds out that her son's new best friend is the nephew of her arch rival, a criminal that she's recently put away. So she has an awful lot to deal with in this. And it's also taken forward into the next book, which I'm writing for next year, called In the Shadows. So that's my police procedurals in a nutshell. But I also made a slight departure from police procedurals last year, and I was delighted to sign a 2-book deal with Canelo for psychological thrillers, which was a huge learning curve for me, I have to say, after writing 9 detective novels. My first book with Canelo was called One Good Lie. It features 2 sisters, and I have to look at the back of the book. I've got a terrible memory to remember the ladies' names. It's Ruby and Sophie, 2 sisters whose mother was murdered a year before the book starts. The guilty party was caught, put in prison, but a year later they have a memorial service to celebrate their mother's life. And on that night, there's another murder in the same circumstances, and it casts doubt over the original conviction. So as we go through the story, all sorts of secrets and lies come in before we find out who's guilty. And the sisters have all sorts of problems between themselves when they start to discover exactly what's going on. So that was my first psychological thriller with Canelo, which I'm pleased to say did really well. I was very nervous because it was a departure from my usual books, but it got really good reviews, so I was really pleased with that. My next book with Canelo is One Fatal Secret, which comes out on Thursday. It's publication week for me, so very excited. One Fatal Secret follows the story of 2 women, Nicole and Anya, who lose their husbands in a plane crash. So the book kicks off with a plane crash. And initially, the crash is thought to be an accident. But when the 2 women start to question what's going on and start to discover that everything isn't what it seems, then a mystery evolves. And people start watching them, and questions start to be asked. My editor, it's very hard to explain this book because there's an awful lot of twists and turns in the story, and I don't want to give too much away. But my editor, when she first read the novel, said it put her in mind of John Grisham's The Firm. So maybe that's, I mean, that's a lovely comparison for me, but maybe that's the comparison as to what kind of psychological thriller it is. So that comes out on Thursday.
Excellent. So while we were going through the introductions, we've got some hellos from Aggie, Sam and Ian, who you'll all know.
Hi.
Hi.
Just to make you worry a little bit more, like the Boston Shadow watching. So start us off each. We'll start with Jane and go back round. Start us off by introducing us to your favourite kind of main character in your most recent book.
Okay, so again, a tough one for me to choose a favourite character of One Fatal Secret, because the two main characters are incredibly different. Anya is a Polish immigrant. Her husband was the pilot of the plane that lost, and the other main character is Nicole, whose husband is a financier. And the two women actually don't really get along at the beginning of the book. They don't really see eye to eye. They've never really got along. But it's the mystery that pulls them together, and that they suddenly start to discover all sorts of secrets and lies about the husbands that they thought they knew, and about the life that they think they have, and about the employer that their husbands had. And everything is not what it seems. So I don't really have a favourite. I think I like the women equally for different reasons. Anya's quite spiky. She's quite feisty. Nicole starts off as being, I wouldn't say meek, but she's always had a very affluent lifestyle. She's been happy with her life. She's got a nice job, a good family, until she realises that all is not what it seems, and all that glitters isn't gold. And what was behind that is, a whole load of interesting stuff, which I can't share with you. But yeah, I think I like them both the same, but for very, very different reasons. And it is interesting to watch how their relationship together evolves and how they come together throughout the novel.
Nice, Julie.
My favourite character, it's like the bad sister. This is a 3 points of view novel. So I have three sisters. I have Natalie, who's the middle sister, Teresa, who's the eldest sister, and Jessica, who is the youngest sister. And I worked really hard to make my three sisters really different, which actually I didn't work that hard because it came quite easily, because sisters are generally really different. So my favourite, when I first started writing the story, I would have said Natalie. When I was in the story, writing the story, I would have said Natalie, who's the middle sister, and who sort of kicks off the beginning of the book. Writer insight here. So I was going to make her the real main character by making her first person, but in the end I didn't do that because I realised that all three sisters are important. So back to my favourite character. Natalie, as grown-up women, so it starts when they're teenagers, young teenagers. But as grown-up women, Natalie is a school teacher. She teaches English. Teresa, the eldest, becomes a barrister, and Jessica, the youngest, becomes a psychiatrist. So my favourite character, I think, really has to be Jessica, the youngest, because she's the most troubled, and she was fun to write, and I just loved her. So Jessica was definitely my favourite sister.
Alex?
Yeah. Do you want me to say more about the story?
Let's see about Alex's favourite character.
Okay, so as I said, my book's The Loyal Friend. Again, it's quite difficult for me to pinpoint a favourite character because they're all a bit screwed up in their own ways as well, to be honest. They're very different. So they're brought together by this exercise class that's run by Jade, and they go to her yoga class. So you have Susan, who is married to a rich lawyer. She's extremely materialistic. She's not afraid of speaking her mind. She sort of looks down on people a bit. She wears loads of jewelry. She's very outspoken. She's all about spas and you know, just doing what she feels, neglecting her children. And then you have Grace, who is sort of the typical 21st century mother who's juggling work, young kids, elderly parents, you know, just trying to manage it all. And then you have Natalie, who's a bit younger than the others, and she's quite a loner. And she's had a really troubled childhood, which means she has a lot of issues that she's trying to deal with, and she finds it hard to form friendships and relationships. And she's quite OCD in the way she goes about things. Like she'll stand in a particular area of the gym class, she'll wear certain clothes, she won't eat at prescribed times. So I think, I mean, Natalie was very interesting to write because of that, because I had to be aware of that as I was writing, you know, in all the scenes that she was in, how would she act, how would she respond to people in certain situations. And I did feel sorry for her as well, because she's had a really tough childhood through no fault of her own. So she's got all that to deal with. But I have to say, I found Susan the most fun to write. Susan is so awful. And she's just doesn't care what she says to anyone. And she just comes out with all these things. And because she's so not like me in terms of, because I mean, I would never say some of the stuff she does. So it was really fun to get into her mindset and be someone like that for like every chapter that she had, because each woman has, we dip in and out of their voices. So I have to say, Susan was quite fun to write. And my editor, Kashni Nadu, she loved Susan too. She thought she was great. So she was fun to write. But Natalie's probably my favourite in terms of I have the most sympathy for her, I would say.
I'm going to ask you one of our group's favourite questions now.
Okay.
Which is, have you ever acted out a scene as you've written it?
I have.
Last night's author chat answer involved having to drink a bottle of wine to use it to see how you would hit someone over the head with a bottle.
Oh my God.
Just to throw that out there.
Well,
Excellent answers already.
Act out.
Shall I take this one?
Sure.
Well, we'll go in turns. In The Bad Sister, I have one of the favourite scenes I wrote in The Bad Sister. I have towards the end. Well, actually, I don't want to give too much away, but towards the end, I have to have a scene where someone is being attacked, and I needed to know the dimensions and the locations of where one character was standing and where the other character is standing. So I suppose in my mind's eye a bit as well, I was sort of in my kitchen a little bit, you know, and so I made my husband, you know, have the knife, and I put a few things in the kitchen that's in my novel, that's in my story, you know, and we sort of acted it out because I didn't know, you know, where things would happen. So yeah, that's what I did for my novel. After having had a glass of wine, by the way.
Well, good answer. Good. And Jane, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of whether I did. I mean, obviously I went because most of my book is set in Highgate and Leytonstone, so I did go to London and we did lots of driving around there. Well, my husband did lots of driving, and I did lots of pointing out places and making him turn around and go back, bless him. But certainly for my detective novels, I've tried lots of things out myself. I mean, I spent about 20 minutes in the boot of a car just to see what it was like. Somebody drive me around, and just to see how you fit in there and how you feel and all that kind of thing. So I've spent an hour in a police cell just to see what that feels like, and the smells and the graffiti on the walls and the thin mattress and the toilet you don't want to use in the corner. But probably the most significant was I discovered an interesting fact about concrete, that bodies buried in concrete are preserved. It has preserving properties. And I decided to use that for one of my books. I had a body buried in concrete. but I really struggled to find somebody to help me with the research because, as you can imagine, there hasn't been a huge amount of research being done on bodies buried in concrete. So I tried all my usual contacts, didn't work. Even tried the lady that advises on silent witness, and it wasn't her area of expertise either. So I decided to do my own experiment, and I buried, much to my daughter's horror, because she's a big foodie, I buried a pig shoulder in concrete in my garden for a year, just to see if my research played out. So to cut it, I mean, it's a long story, but to cut a long story short, my research did work. But yeah, when we broke into the concrete, what I didn't realise was it was a very hot day. All my neighbours were having barbecues with friends and families in surrounding gardens. But what I didn't know was once oxygen hits the piece of meat, it goes into rapid degeneration. So the smell is putrid. And my husband and I are in a massive flap to get rid of the pig shoulder and everything else because my neighbours are having barbecues with their friends and families in the surrounding garden. So, yeah. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that, but at least I know that what I wrote about was true.
I think you're now the winner of our research. Acting out a scene.
Can't top that at all.
Yeah, no, that like me.
I don't want to speak.
Alex, give it a few years, because we're talking 10 years worth of work here.
I feel like that, yeah.
I haven't done anything as exciting as that, to be honest. But I suppose you were talking about visiting locations for my Crane and Carver thrillers. I did go round because in the Scribe, there's about 6 or 7 murders in very prominent locations in London. So I did go and visit each location to kind of feel the victim there, what it would feel like, what she would hear, the noises. I went in the dark around St. Paul's Cathedral. One of the murders takes place around there. So I walked through there, and that was quite scary just to get that sense of unease and what you would see. And one of the murders takes place in Hampton Court Maze. So I did try and see if I could fit into a bush.
Did you film it?
Sorry?
Did you film it? Tried to squeeze through?
No, I didn't. On my own, actually. But yeah, that was probably but it's nothing as good as yours, James. So yeah. But
I like that.
Really. But just to see if the body could be hidden, really. And, yeah.
I like it. They're all excellent answers. All superb. I'm very glad I asked that question. What are you all working on at the moment? What's the current work in progress? What can you tell us about it?
Well, obviously I've just finished this one, but I've just signed a new deal with Hero Books, which is very exciting, and I have actually started the new book for them. So I don't know if I can say too much really, because I haven't really finalized it, but it's another multiple perspective book, and it's set abroad, and it's based around a reunion of friends, and it goes to the past as well. So it's something that related to the past that's haunting them all these years, and they're trying to keep it from each other. And obviously things will come out as they're on holiday, and yeah, I can't say too much because it's very in the early stages. So, but it's set in Italy as well.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Well, I know Italy really well. So I got married in Italy. So
wow.
Really familiar with on the south coast. So on the Amalfi Coast, well, more Sorrento, but yeah.
How lovely.
So it's nice to be able to write about somewhere that as you know, as an author, if you know a place well, it's nice because you really have a feel for it. It's almost like a home from home. So yeah, I'm excited to get stuck into that.
That's good.
So I've written 50,000 words of the new Crane and Carver thriller as well, which is another serial investigation. So I'm working on that as well. So 2 things juggling. So,
wow.
I've lost sound.
I did for a bit there actually, but I think it's back now.
Shall we get your answer, Jane?
I can't hear anything.
Okay, yes. So I'm writing the next DCI Helen Lavery novel for next year, which is called In the Shadows, which is actually, I mean, I haven't written that many serial killer thrillers, even though I've written 9 detective novels, but this one is another serial killer, but it's a serial killer with a difference. So we have counter-terror involved. It's quite an unusual police procedural, and it's actually quite tricky to write with all the twists and turns and everything that are in it. I'm about halfway through now. I'm just hoping that I can make it work. I'm sure I can. But yeah, so I'm working on that at the moment.
Hello.
Out next year. And also I'm working on a couple of ideas for some more psychological thrillers as well. So they're really very much in their infancy, but excited to have a look at those too. Are you with us, Julianne? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Don't know. It's muted me. I don't think they can hear me.
We can hear you, Julianne.
Can hear you. There's a very lovely dog in the background.
We've just seen your doggy come in.
I don't know. It was there, but it's gone.
Well, that's nothing here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to take Julianne out, so then she'll come back in and hopefully it will fix things.
Okay.
While we wait for her to come back, give us your most memorable moments as an author so far.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go first, Alex. Let me have a think.
I think when my debut, The Scribe, came out, I was very fortunate. I had a book launch at Foyles in Charing Cross Road with my very good friend Avais Khan, and we're both with the same agency, and he's a dear friend of mine, and it was really lovely to be able to be on stage with him, and because we're nervous newbies, that was really nice. And Ayo Onatade was the moderator for that, so that was fantastic. So that was I'll always remember that. I think getting my Hero book deal was a massive moment for me, and I was just so delighted and to be working with Kashini. That was a dream come true, to be honest. And I think just I got bestseller tags for my Craig McCarver thrillers. That was always really nice. It's always nice to get a bestseller tag. That's always very special. And I think just seeing your books on the shelves really, and the works and all the major online retailers like Waterstones. That's always a dream of an author, isn't it? And to hold your paperback. So I think those are the main highlights so far. I think.
Jane?
I think for me, it's when we're going back to 2010, but it's when I signed with my first agent. I never wrote to be published. I didn't think I would ever be published. I did it because I just wanted to see whether I could actually write a novel, because the average novel is 80 to 100,000 words, and I wasn't even sure that I could achieve that. So I did it for the love of literature, really, and it was a creative writing tutor that spurred me on and made me submit. And when I got an invitation to go and see the agent in their Kensington offices, I was just completely overwhelmed. And it was such a lovely day. My husband came down to London with me, and he waited outside, and their meeting room in their offices was like floor to ceiling bookcases.
Wow.
And in those bookcases were like the books from the authors that they represented. And they had like Sean Connery's autobiography and Evan Davis from Radio 4. I literally thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I've always been a massive reader. It was just an incredible moment. Ellie Griffiths for crime. And they had an oak square coffee table in the middle of the room with a glass top. And sitting on that coffee table was my manuscript printed out. Now, I'd never printed my manuscript out. I'd only ever seen chunks of it on a computer screen. So it was such an exciting time. And I remember my husband, and he's sort of like, well, how did it go? And I'm sort of like, let's walk around the corner. So we walked around the corner, and it was great. And I think for me, that is, if nothing else happens in my writing career, as you say, Alex, whenever I receive a finished book, honestly, I'm so excited.
It's just seeing your name on there and all the hard.
It's amazing.
And it's just nice to just feel it.
Yeah, it takes so long to write it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It takes a year to write them, and then sometimes it can be another year before
Yeah.
they're published. And when you get that little box of books on the doorstep, and they make them look so lovely, and with one good lie, this was the first book I'd ever had that was embossed. And I was so excited about being embossed. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but they do make them look so beautiful. So yeah, I think every time I get a finished book, I always pinch myself because there are so many pinch moments in this job. And it's
the same with getting an agent as well was, because it took me 5 years, I think, writing some women's fiction novels, and that's how I started off, because I was pregnant with my second son. I didn't have time to write. I knew I wanted to write thrillers, but you need a lot of time to write a thriller. And then I sent them off and thinking, oh yes, I'm going to get, obviously rejections come, and it doesn't happen. And then I ended up self-publishing. So then I wrote a thriller, and then finally, after 5 years of being in the game, I get my agent. That was like, really? You just can't believe it's actually happened. So that's a nice thing.
Dr. Julie back?
Am I back?
You are?
Oh, you are, yes.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. I've opened lots of windows. Hi again. Sorry. I love it. It muted my mic. Anyway, I'm here.
It's the vagaries of technology.
I know.
We were just discussing your most memorable moments as an author.
Most memorable moments as an author. I think, I think the most memorable moment is having your first book published. Like for me, I don't think you can ever recreate that. Even if you might have a book in the future that's more successful than your first book. The first book's just that feeling. But my most memorable moment as an author was quite a long time ago. It's when I very first started writing, and I'd written my first novel, my first attempt at a novel, and I went to the Hay Literary Festival in Hay-on-Wye, and it was one lovely summer, and I was a really new writer, and I was really naive and really enthusiastic. And that evening they had a open mic session, where you can, and I had to wait. I was with my husband and family and friends. I had to wait till 11 o'clock at night. I'm not very good at night, especially after a few ciders at the Hay Festival. So I did an open mic with the guy that moderated it was, I don't know whether you've heard of him, Paul Blazard. He did a lot of work at the Hay Festival. And so I read the prologue of the first novel I had ever written, and I got a standing ovation at the festival. And honestly, I think more than anything, that really was for me. And I have to say here, I thought I'd cracked it. I thought I was going to be a really famous author, and because that's how naive I was. And I hadn't even finished that first book. But I mean, the nice thing about that first book was it wasn't a crime novel. It was a historical novel. That was how I started out writing, even though there's crime in it. And that book was eventually published. It was published last year with another publisher, not Canelo. So that was good. So the very first book that I wrote, so that must be 10 years ago, was published. So that was a lovely moment. But I mean, there's so many. I think every moment where something positive happens, finding an agent, finding a publisher, having a book published, your editor, your editor. I remember when Canelo signed, when they offered on The Nurse, which was published last year, so it would have been in 2020, which was during lockdown. Can you remember that lockdown? And it was all a bit of a nightmare for various reasons for me, like it was for many people. And so that really took me through lockdown in a lot of ways, through all the pain, because something so lovely had happened. So, but I remember when, my editor, the editor at the time who commissioned my book, because she loved my book, and that, I think that was maybe the second moment was was an editor who I grew to respect, and you know, and my editor now, it's lovely when someone kind of gets what you're doing. So yeah, maybe I think three moments was the Hay Festival when I had my first book published, as in the book launch, because I had a book launch in London at dawn, so that was lovely. So that, and then the third one was when when my book The Nurse was picked up with Canelo and the Bad Sister as it became my second book. So yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones. I'm sure there's other lovely moments, but they're the three main ones. Yeah.
So as bookish events are coming back, we've just had a lovely kind of long weekend. Like we went down to Wigan, did me and Sam, who host these events, and hosted a real in-person author event, which was like a lot of fun.
On Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it's nice that things are coming up again. So what have you all got planned? Are you going to any festivals? You got any kind of real author events coming up?
I don't mind. I've got a couple of things. So I'm having a live book launch event at my local store for The Loyal Friend in Cobham.
Frozen.
So sorry, did it echo then? Sorry, I had echo on my mic, sorry. Yeah, so I've got a book launch at Cobham Bookshop, which is near me. So that's really nice. It's so nice to be able to support your independent store. You know, they've suffered so much during lockdown, so I'm looking forward to that. And just doing something live. See, when She's Mine came out last year, we were all doing online things, and which was great to be able to do that. But it's so nice to actually meet people in the flesh now and sign some books. I'm looking forward to that. And I've also been asked to appear at Capital Crime in Battersea Park in September. So I'm really excited about that. I went to the inaugural one back in 2019, which was fantastic. I loved it. It was such a good crime festival. They had amazing panels. I remember seeing Martina Cole on stage, and Ian Rankin and people like that. So I'm really delighted to be a part of that this year. I think it's running 29th of September, 30th and the 1st of October in Battersea Park. So that was a real honour to be asked to that. So I'm excited to do that. Yeah, that's it for now. Yeah.
Julie, what have you got planned?
Well, I've got planned writing another book, Caroline, but I'm going to Harrogate, which I'm really looking forward to. So I haven't been for quite a few years. So Harrogate, which I am looking forward to very much, but no other festivals. I've got to knuckle down and write my next book.
Well, I'm going to Harrogate, so say hello.
Oh, yeah, that'd be. Are you there all weekend or?
Just for the Saturday.
Okay, well, I'm there the Saturday, so it'd be lovely to see you. I'm actually coming along with a tribunal, mental health tribunal judge and another friend who's in the legal profession. So they were really keen to come to a crime festival. So they both love reading as well. So it'd be nice to catch up with you.
Jane, what have you got planned?
No festivals. I'm not actually going to Harrogate this year. This is my husband's retirement year, so we're going to be in Amsterdam. So I'll be thinking of you all in Harrogate. I'm sorry to miss it, but I'm sure Amsterdam will be exciting too. I do quite a few talks locally to groups and things, U3As and WIs, and on Monday I'm talking to the Parkinson's Society, a charity. So I sort of keep that rolling all the time, maybe do one or two a month if I'm lucky, generally quieter over the summer. So yeah, I've got some, I mean, I've been very lucky. I've got some bookings for next year already. So I tend to do sort of more small scale. I've done a few festivals, but I did the All Thought Festival with Laura Spencer, which was amazing to do. It was absolutely incredible, at Princess Diana's home in Althorpe, which was lovely. But I don't have any lined up for the rest of the year, but I'm quite happy to do them if anybody wants me to come along.
Nice. So Ian said he's going to Cobham and looking forward to it.
Well, thank you.
And he's also at Harrogate, but only until Saturday lunchtime, but he's hoping to catch up with people. Aggie, one of our very lovely members, has asked you, are any of your books translated to other languages, and what are they? And if they're only in English, what language and foreign audience would you choose and why? Good question, though. Alex?
Unfortunately not. Not right now. We are working on it. I think the German market, I'd like to have it translated in Germany, possibly France as well. I mean, they're quite wide markets, aren't they? I think the German market is a big market. So to get your books into that market would be fabulous. Obviously, our books are available worldwide anyway, so they're out in worldwide, out in America and Canada and places like that. So that's not a separate territory that we can go for. And I've heard the Romanian market's quite a big market too. Actually, it's coming along. So yeah, I'll basically take any market.
Yeah. I had some news today, actually, that The Nurse, which is my book published with Canelo in 2021, that's being translated into Polish, in Taiwan.
Fantastic news.
And Slovenia. But I heard today, actually, Caroline, that I've been sent the cover for the Polish version for this, for The Nurse. And it's really lovely, but that they're using the same cover as Canelo's cover. So they must have sorted that out between them. That's the business side of things. So and it looks great, and I think Poland are publishing in hardback as well as paperback, so you should get a nice copy of that. So that's really exciting.
It's exciting.
But
Well done.
Takes so long though, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It does take a long time.
So that's good. But yeah, I mean, other markets, I would love to be published in France and Germany, and I'd also love to be published in Spain. I'd love to be published anywhere as well. Alex.
Italy, so I'd love Italy as well. Yeah.
I think we're running
publishers out there.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
I don't want to be published in Russia at the moment, though. Shouldn't say that, should I?
Jane?
Well, obviously, I've been writing for quite a while, so I've had a few foreign deals. I mean, it can take a while for them, like you say, Julianne, it takes a while for them to come to fruition, really, doesn't it? So Sweden, I had hardbacks in Sweden. First time I've ever been in hardback, which was really lovely. I mean, the books look amazing. I had a series translated into Chinese. I think it's just simple Chinese. I've got Italy, Germany. I'm racking my brains now, trying to think. I think that might be it, actually. Yeah. I think I would love to be translated into Iceland. I think because I went to Iceland a few years ago, and I think that, like, the Scandinavians would be just, I know I've had Sweden, but it would just be so nice.
I think, sorry, I'm interrupting, but yeah, because of their noir, the Icelandic noir thing, it'd be great to.
Oh, it would just be amazing.
That dark.
That kind of dark theme. But what I find really interesting is the fact that they look quite different. The books look quite different in different countries, don't they? Yes. And often the covers that they come up with are really quite different. And the layout and everything is, my Chinese ones they were paperbacks, but they had paperback covers over the top of the paperbacks. So that's really interesting. I mean, a lot of my detective books have been published separately in paperback in the US. And again, their covers are very different to ours. So I do find that really interesting.
Yeah. I'm seriously thinking of going to Poland to go and look in the shops, because I love Poland. I went there with my daughter 4 or 5 years ago to do research. And I love Poland. So I actually might use it as an excuse to just go for a little holiday,
Sounds like a good plan.
Any excuse for a holiday. Or research, a research holiday, yes.
Sounds like a very good plan. Aggie has said that she's going to send her mum a note about the nurse. She'll be thrilled.
Oh, does Aggie's mum, is Aggie's mum in not in the UK?
I suspect she isn't, and I suspect she reads in Polish.
Fantastic. Oh, fantastic.
Polish.
I love it.
That's
Oh, I'm definitely coming to Poland now.
Ian said it's tax deductible as well. All the help there, isn't it?
Okay, I'm definitely going.
Right, another one of our favourite questions to ask is, what's the most kind of interesting research rabbit hole you've been down, where you've been researching one of your books? I feel like Jane's going to have a good answer here, when her last one was like burying shoulders in concrete.
Oh gosh, you'll have to give me a minute to think about that. I mean, the concrete comes to mind straight away, but obviously that was a big research project for me.
I've got one.
Go on.
Well, it's probably not that interesting for crime readers, but when I was writing The Bad Sister, I wrote, my favourite character, Jessica, the psychiatrist, who actually goes to court. So I wrote a court scene, and I'm really big on research and getting things really spot on. So I really needed to speak to someone, and a judge would have been perfect to write my court scene. And so when I was writing The Bad Sister, I got in touch with a criminal court judge who has just been so wonderful. She was just so great with my research, and I've just lost the question now. So I've ended up making friends with her, and I go to her court to see her in court, so I can get ideas for other books. And she also, with this, it's quite inspirational, simply because The Bad Sister, one of the themes is the strong women theme, and the judge, the lady who helped me, is an extremely strong character and does a lot of work, for women in law and women in careers. So yeah, that was lovely, because my research, I was able to meet someone new and get quite a lot out of it. So we meet quite regularly now. So it's great. That's the nice thing about being a writer. That's the nice bit, isn't it?
It's lovely.
Sort of people who help you, and then you have an ongoing relationship, and it just opens up so many other avenues. I mean, from in a selfish point of view, for other ideas for stories. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good friends with Roger A. Price. He writes the Badger and Pen series. He writes the Bloom books, and he's actually an ex-DI, and I called upon him to help me with some research for the abduction on police procedure, because he was in the force for about 30 years. So it was really lovely to be able to, I admire him as an author, but he was able to put his police hat on and also give me some expert advice on that as well. And then I needed some advice on the effect of fire on DNA, because in the abduction there's a big explosion and you don't know if there's bodies in the van or not. So he actually introduced me to a good friend of hers, and she's actually advised the BBC and things as well for drama productions. So it was amazing to have contact with someone like that, who's obviously so experienced. She was so lovely as well. She was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you," And it's really, really nice to meet someone like that with that amount of experience. And although she was quite disparaging of some of the drama series that come out on television sometimes, she said they do take liberties quite a lot. The authors probably couldn't, because I think television programs sort of get away with it more than us authors. We have a little bit of leeway, but not to the extent that TV programs do, I think. So
yeah, I'm totally with you there, Alex. I mean, my husband he's just retired. He was a detective, so it was really helpful for research for me. He introduced me to so many people. I spent time with firearms. I've spent time with an afternoon with a family liaison officer when I wrote my family liaison officer series. I was incredibly lucky. But he says exactly the same about television dramas, how off the procedure can be. It drives him nuts. But we can't get away with that in a book, I don't think. We can't make it up. It has
the smallest thing, you know there's going to be some reviewer on Amazon saying, that wouldn't happen.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think it has to be convincing and believable in a book.
Yeah, but don't you think as well? I mean, do you not think as well that you have to be quite careful with the police procedural stuff, because there has to be enough to make it authentic, but not too much to be really boring.
You can't, you can't bog it down. I mean, I think you find yourself doing far more research than you'll ever do in the book.
Yeah.
It just informs the fabric of the story, really.
Of course it does.
Because otherwise,
you're in police procedure, you want it to be the story, do you? Want to? It's a bit like in my legal thrillers. You know, I have a little bit of law in there just to give the
flavor
of it, so they learn a little bit, but they don't want an instruction in contract law. You know, that's really dull.
No.
Balance, isn't it? How much you put into it.
Definitely. I think probably for me, one of the most interesting books that I researched was I had a Chinese student that was in Stratford upon Avon. She'd come over from Beijing and she was studying at Stratford College. It was my first D.I. Jackman book set in Stratford. And as a reader, we know that she's been abducted because she has an argument with her boyfriend in the Old Thatch Tavern, which is an old pub right in the middle of Stratford. She's walking back and we follow her story. So we know she's been abducted and we follow her story and she's kept in captivity. D.I. Will Jackman doesn't know. So it starts off as a missing persons and then it becomes a kidnapping inquiry. And that was a really interesting book because I needed to find out about liaison with Chinese authorities. But I also really needed to find out about how the students feel when they come over here, the Chinese students, because obviously there's lots of cultural differences. And I've never been to China. I've been to Hong Kong and Japan, but never actually been to mainland China. And I've read loads and loads of books, but sometimes you just need that kind of first-hand experience. So I got an introduction with the Chinese student liaison officer at Northampton University, which is my local university. And he was able to give me little snippets of information, like the students come over here and tend to go out in groups. They don't go out alone a lot. And it's the same back in China. But also they come over here with their rice pans because they don't think we can cook rice properly. And their array of herbal medicines because they don't think medicines are going to work. And within a week, the medicines are in the cabinet in the bathroom. The rice pans are still in their boxes and they're down McDonald's having their tea.
They're down where? McDonald's.
McDonald's having their tea. But it's just it's that kind of information that kind of brings your story alive, if you like, you know. I just found that quite fascinating, really. I mean, we all know that they have their own version of YouTube and they have a limited internet access. We have, than we have here. But it's those sorts of things about how they feel when they come over here, because literally I had to get into this poor girl's head because she's kept in captivity throughout the book. And I really had to feel what it was like as a Chinese student coming over here. I found it absolutely fascinating, I've got to say.
Sounds really good. You've been asked by someone, I can't see the name. It says, how many of you have based your characters on people you know or have met? That question you can't answer.
It's one that comes up a lot, I think that one is. I tend to say that my character is based on fragments of lots of different people. So
exactly what I was
I totally agree. One of my books is based on something that I knew is based on a real case and someone I had met. But that's as far as I'll go with that. But I only used the skeleton of the story and the person and sort of hung everything around it.
I mean, in my Kramer books, certainly because I worked in the city for about 8 years and I was a lawyer, so a lot of the characters, there are snippets, as you said, of people that I've met. particularly some of the more disagreeable ones, maybe. You know, it's still quite a misogynistic society in the city. Like, there's some lovely people as well. I mean, I met my husband at the same law firm, but you know, a lot of that still goes on. So I'd be lying to say I didn't take inspiration from certain bits of that, people I've come across. But I would never completely base someone on, you know, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, even there's bits of me, I suppose, in certain things. I mean, you know, I mean, Maddie's a lawyer. I'm nowhere near as good a lawyer as Maddie was in the Kramer thrillers, but I'm personality-wise, I'm a bit like her, I suppose. But I've also taken inspiration from other women I've met in the city who are very strong and ambitious. So there's bits of, because you know, we're never off duty as writers, are we? We're always, you know,
always going on in your head. Yeah.
Whether it's someone we know, or whether it's on a TV program or in the news, you know, we're always thinking, oh, can this, you know, work? So
I think subconsciously as well, things come through as well, don't they? There was a character in my first book, a minor character really, in my first book, An Unfamiliar Murder. It was Anna's boyfriend, Ross. And when the book came out and people read the book, and I think half of Northamptonshire Police Force read the book, and they were like, well, that Ross is your husband. And I hadn't thought that when I wrote it, but Ross is, he lives on his own. He has he pedal cycles everywhere, and he has bits of bikes all over his lounge, and he has a dog and all this kind of thing. And it's just how my husband is, I think. When I go away to his friends or on holiday, he brings his bikes in, and you know, and everything sort of changes. And I suppose subconsciously,
you didn't intentionally do that, but in your mind, it just
yeah. He doesn't look anything like him, but I think in character, he probably is.
I think probably in psychological thrillers as well, because a lot of it's about feelings, isn't it, and emotions and things you might have experienced, like issues. So there might be a bit of yourself in that as well. I mean, one of my characters in The Loyal Friend, Grace, she's, as I said, she's juggling it all. She's working mum, she's got sick parents. I mean, I've been dealing with that as well, I'll be honest. So it's a bit of me and her as well. So because I've been through all that stuff, so I can empathise with it and put it on paper. It's actually quite cathartic sometimes to do that. But it's so I think, that we do use bits of ourselves in characters because of things that we've been through. But that's what comes with life, isn't it? And living experiences and using them in your work.
In my past career, I was a physiotherapist, so I was an outpatient physiotherapist, so I met loads of people, you know, general public. And I think over those years, I pillaged a lot for my writing, like, you know, characters. People used to tell me their life stories and, you know, horrible things, nice things, but horrible things too. And I think I pillaged all of that, you know. But I'm sure we all have. You know, I met.
Sorry to interrupt. We've got 2 minutes left.
Wow.
And I want to give you a last chance to advertise yourselves. Okay, starting with Jane. So just show us the cover off of your latest book. Give everyone a reminder of where they can go and find
One Fatal Secret kicks off with a plane crash, and then it becomes a tremendous mystery where the two people eventually find their own lives at risk. So One Fatal Secret is actually out on Thursday. Thank you.
Lovely. Julie?
The Bad Sister. One rotten apple can spoil the bunch. Psychological thriller. Really dark, with an unforgettable ending.
Oh, that's true on mine, actually. On the reviews on NetGalley, it's causing quite a lot of controversy, the ending on mine, which I didn't anticipate at all. So it's actually quite interesting to see what people are making of it. Sorry, Alex.
Mine is The Loyal Friend. It centres on the disappearance of a fitness instructor, and it's told mainly through the eyes of 3 women who attend her class, all of whom have dark pasts and secrets they'll do anything to keep buried, and all who may have reason to wish Jade ill. It's very dark, twisty. There are multiple twists in it. including one hopefully shocker at the end. And it's available Amazon, Waterstones online, The Works, I think, and various online retailers.
Excellent.
And it's 23rd of June. Sorry, I should have said that. That's quite key. 23rd of June.
Nice. And then all that's left to say is thanks very much for.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So much for having us. Thank you very much, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Bye
Thank
bye.
you for coming.